So Bay Island we probably will not get, but that one's out, if you know where, in Garland, out I-30 where Bass Pro Shops is. It's on that little peninsula. It's almost, there's one property in front of it, and then it's waterfront. And the property that's right in front of it is going to be, at some point, redeveloped, because just across the lake, they started a $1 billion project right out there across the lake. So this one's right in the path of progress, a great deal. Let me rephrase. The numbers were not spectacular, but the growth there would be great. But again, I don't think we're going to get that one. We have Renaissance we're closing. Buckingham is another one that we're working on. We're negotiating a contract on that one right now. And depending on how that goes, that will be one that we will let everybody know about. And that is at the corner of Buckingham and Jupiter. Anybody know that area of Garland at all? That's 6 lanes both ways, and this is the property right on the corner, right behind 7-Eleven. Today, part of what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and show you what these papers are. This is an off-market deal, okay? So this is one that we will analyze. If it's off-market, they don't have an offering memorandum, an OM they call it. And so you get a rent roll, you get financials, and you get a little bit of information, and you got to figure it out yourself. So we're going to go through that to show you how we do that and analyze that to see if we want to buy it. Okay? That way you can participate and look at it right there and figure that out yourselves as well, so you know how to analyze potential deals if they're good for you. The reason we're here on a Monday is because of some scheduled outpatient stuff tomorrow. So I had to switch it. And so back on Tuesday next month, June 5th. And then the following Saturday will be the horse races. So June 5th, and then the horse races. First thing is we purchased a software, Investor Management Systems, IMS, which is a high-powered portal for investors, so you can get all of your information for all your properties in one login, one location. You can set up your own ACH, so you don't have to receive checks anymore. I don't know who complains about receiving checks, but you can actually have it ACH now and manage that yourself and get your K1s on there. You see all the reports, everything else, as well as have, if you're going to subscribe to a deal, you can go in there and sign everything electronically, you know, trying to make Jeremy's life easier. And it's got a lot of other features, but these were the important ones for you.
You guys know Park Row? Let's see. They had a fire out there maybe a month back, 2 months back. And then a couple of weeks later, and then a couple of weeks later, a SWAT team came out there. The rest of that didn't live there, just happened to be in the neighborhood.
That was Los Lomas.
No, they came to Park Row too.
Okay.
So then we had a lady who was driving by the property and decided to make a sharp left turn into the front of our building.
How are you?
She didn't do that.
This is a neat
That was about 2 weeks ago. Last week, a lady was dropping off her children at her mother's house, mistaked the gas pedal for the brake pedal and drove the car into a patio fence. Oh wait, today? So every time my phone rings and it says Park Row, I am just terrified. It says Park Row manager Heidi. So I answer the phone and I'm like, is something on fire? And she said, no. I said, did somebody drop from the building? And she said, no. I said, then why are you calling me? She said, because we got a giant gas leak and the gas companies come out here and shut down the whole building. They're working on it right now. I don't know if you guys know what happens when you have a gas leak. I thought I might share that with you. Atmos shows up, and they determine what pipeline is potentially leaking, and they find their meter, and they check it all the way up to their meter. And if everything's fine, they shut the gas off. And they say, we're not turning this on until you repair this. But wait,
That's what I was trying to
you can't
email
repair
every-
this until you
That's
pull
what I was
a
doing in
permit.
the hallway.
from
So
the
I feel
city.
bad.
So if this happens
I
at
mean,
5
I
o'clock
paid
at
for
night,
100 people.
You're
The only way
toast
to
till the next
upgrade the
morning.
enterprise level is through a salesperson.
Then you have to call
They won't
them
even
up.
let you do it online,
And they come out,
which is
of course, the gas meter's gone. So they energize the pipe, fill it full of air, and they try and find the leak. How do they find the leak? One unit at a time. All the way through the line until they find it. Or them. And typically what happens when this occurs is that each of those little valves behind the stove or something somewhere that's got a little tiny connection has got a little tiny leak. But there's usually more than one. So they're out there working on it as we speak. So if Park Row comes up on your phone, don't answer. Okay. All right. I am limited by minutes, so I'm going to speak quickly, and I'm going to stop for each property if anybody has any questions. Brookside, 95.5 occupied today, trending 93.4. First week of the month, that's not too bad. You guys remember we talked last month about the first week of the month being the worst for trend? All of your notices have hit. We've got people that are moving, people are giving notice. 60 days out, they're at 92. If they're within 2 points, I'm not really too worried about Brookside. Las Lomas, 95 occupied, 93 trend, 30 days out, 93 trend, 60 days out. That property stabilized very well. The staff is starting to come together, terminated the lead maintenance guy out there, promoted the assistant, and everybody out there is happy. They're all working together well. Sunset Heights, how many people here at Sunset Heights? I bet you're loving this deal, aren't you? 98.9 occupied, 98.9 at the end of 30 days, and 100% in 60. That means everything that's on notice is rented 60 days out. You can't get an apartment there if you try. Philly Creek. There's lots of Philly Creek people lovers here too, aren't there? 97.5, 30 days out, 98.14, 60 days out, 97.52. The manager is right back there. Raise your hand, Diana. Riverbend. I love this girl. Mariana, have you been to the property? How many Riverbend people? If you get a chance, go out there. Okay, she was gone for 10 days. Gone to Mexico, helping her husband get citizenship, right? I should be nervous, right? The assistant is running the property. Riverbend, 96 occupied, 94 leak, 94 30 days, 96 at 60. Like she was never even gone. That's the way you want it to run. Tribeca, we'll come back to that. Woodwind, 98.9 and 96. We are sitting on Woodwind. I've got a temporary manager out there guarding the property for 60 days. Nobody moves, nobody leaves until it closes.
Quick pause on that. Woodwind, we had the call for offers, negotiated a deal, and they have been screwing around with the contract. And we gave them until 5 o'clock today to sign the contract. Otherwise, we are pulling their offer and going with somebody else. Because it's been a month dealing with a contract, which is unreasonable. So FYI on Woodwind, it's not officially, it might be under contract as of 5 o'clock today. I haven't gotten an update since then.
Park Row East. How many Park Row people? 96 occupied, 95 at 30 days, 95 at 60. That property's nice and stable too. Heidi's out there. This girl is amazing. I mean, they drive into buildings, they set fires, the SWAT team shows up. She doesn't blink, it just goes like this. Tribeca is our challenge right now. Tribeca is 94.8, which is almost 95 occupied. At the end of the month, if everybody that was supposed to move in, moved in, and everybody that was supposed to move out, moved out, they would be at 89. 60 days, 89. Let me tell you what's happening. Talk to Letty, who's back there also. Raise your hand, take the heat, girl. So, this is usually caused by not having as many people coming in as you do have going out. It is the first week of the month. They had 6 people, like I said, that bought houses all of a sudden. And they had an inordinate amount of people whose leases expired this month. In other words, a large percentage of leases expired. Now, I've known Letty for a little while, since she was at Woodwind. I walked it with a landscaper, We're doing something around the sign area. We've got some bushes that are coming. We're doing impact areas. Basically, Darwin said, make it really nice. So we're doing all the impact areas, and then they're also looking at the irrigation system, because that thing, I think, hasn't been right for a long time. It really looks good. It really looks good. We have did I tell you guys about the undercover out there? Park Row in Las Lomas?
No.
Okay, so that part of Arlington, from time to time, has problems. And so I met this kid about 3 months ago, and he's like a security guard, he's like a sergeant or something. And he's really big, he wants to be a police officer. So what we did was, I said, okay, courtesy officers, you're familiar with that process? You move them in, they get free rent, they live there, they patrol and, write notices and stuff like that. So when I was first taking this over, a month before March 1st, it'll be February 1st, I hired this guy and I said, I'm gonna give you 2 properties and I'll give you 1 apartment. Take your pick. And so we'll be billing back Park Row from Tribeca from Las Lomas. So what I did was I put this kid in and I said, don't wear a uniform. Don't do anything that lets anybody know who you are. And I want you to spend 2 months. I want to hear from you, I want to know you, but at the end of 2 months, I want you to bring me a list of all my drug dealers, all my problem people. Okay? You tell me where the worst of the worst are. And he's like, okay. 2 months goes by. End of March, he took over. He had a long list. And lo and behold, the cops start hitting the place. Where do they go? The exact same places he had marked. So now he's patrolling, he's walking and writing people up. But what we got the worst of the worst out really easy. And they never even saw it coming.
That scares me. That how many do we have in there when you're saying it that way?
What do you mean?
Is there like a plethora? Is this like a
No.
huge percent?
No, it's
Okay.
usually 2 or 3. These are 200 unit buildings. I mean, you get 2 or 3 people that slip in. It's not the residents that bring the trouble. It's their cousins, their sisters, their grandkids. They come to stay, and they bring their business with them. Now, here's the really stupid part, right? These guys are running back and forth. They're like middlemen. They don't really have any quantity or anything. Guess where they are? You guys know where Las Lomas and Park Row is? Do you know what's across the street?
Grand Prairie.
A school. Do you know what happens if you sell drugs within 1,000 feet of a school? It's huge, huge crime. I mean, it's not like this normal. They keep it on you. These guys are not the sharpest tools in the shed. Anybody else? Okay. Dylan's going to give you some accounting stuff, and I have no idea what it means here.
I don't either, but I'm gonna make it up as I go along. I want to elaborate on what Darwin was talking about a little bit earlier. His understanding is pretty much like mine. We think you just copy files from one place to another on the hard drive, set it up.
Diller.
Username.
Pause.
Yes.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm the accounting manager for this little enterprise at the other places as well.
Okay.
Ken called me CFO. I don't feel important enough to be considered me CFO. But apparently it wasn't as simple as that. Anyway, what we discovered as we started the closed the book of March, our April, was that our ending and Walker Holders payable accounts didn't match what our beginning balances were. And that's the problem, because then we started looking down and finding out what was in those payables accounts. And you run a list of Walker Holders unpaid invoices as of 2/28. You run a list of our unpaid invoices as of 3/1, and they didn't match. And that presented some accounting problems I went through. We have been working with residents since we identified the issue about 2.5 weeks ago. Our resolution was compounded by a lack of communication. There it is. First, we resolved the situation with our higher ups, and then he went to go be with his wife before we could have it. She just appeared on last week. So at that point, we got the higher ups involved. We have a conference call scheduled tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock to visit with residents and find out where they are on resolving this. The numbers are not significant at any property. not really significant in terms of financial performance or distributions or anything like that. But I am loath, and I think I have the support, hope I have the support of Darwin and Ken and Brian, to publish any financial statements that aren't accurate, because that's just going to create confusion problems, the potential for confusion problems a little bit farther down the line. We want to get it right, and so what we're going to do is hopefully we'll get this resolved sometime this week. We'll finish our March close, we'll continue closing on April, and the March statements will be distributed at the same time as the April statements. Hopefully, relatively on schedule, on about the 2%. The other thing I wanted to mention, just because I had something to talk about, remember what I said last month when I was up here, what the largest expense at every property is, or in aggregate across the portfolio? Property taxes. I got to work one Monday a couple weeks ago and said, I wonder if property tax values are in yet. I started hitting the websites, the TAD website, the Dallas County website, the Denton County website for properties that we manage up there. And lo and behold, the values were the posted. And I started copying them down and comparing them to last year and thought, holy, because there are some significant changes. And I immediately copied the emails, or copied the values to Brian and said, hey, look what's going on. Of course, Brian was already on top of it, and they are already working with the tax advisors to do the protest. But here's what we're looking at. I thought I'd run this by everybody right quick. These are preliminary values posted by the appraisal district, subject to appeal, further revision, and of course, ultimately the taxes are a function of both the appraised value and the tax rates that the various entities decide on. But at Riverbend, these are in no particular order. Riverbend, value's gone up 22% from last year. Willow Creek, it's off light. Willow Creek is at 9.5%. Woodland, 25.6%. Brookside, a 40% increase in appraised value. About that one. Las Lomas, 53.6% increase in value proposed by the Terre Appraisal District. Park Row East, 61.5%. Sunset Heights, 24.1%. Tribeca, if I can read that right, is 67.7% proposed increase in value courtesy of the Terre Appraisal District. So, that's about all I got. I wanted to run through and just mention those and point out to you, A, the significant impact that property tax valuations have on the the expenses of property and the resulting NOI and cash flow, and two, to let you know that Ryan's already on top of this and they're already working on that. That's about my favorite. So exactly what's going on in that area, I don't know, but they are working on it. We have top people working on it. Top people. Yes, sir. Your question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, who is your tax consultant that you guys are using?
I don't even remember who it is. Brian is handling that, and we use the same company every year, and we fight every one of those. Actually, there's a few of them that we're not going to fight because 9% increase is not a big deal, things like that. But there's a few that we had to take to court last year, and it takes until October, November to get it all rectified. But we fight those every year. And Tarrant County is the worst. Is the worst offender. They jack everything up. And what I don't understand is what cities, counties, schools, and everybody is doing with these 40% budget increases that they're getting from real estate taxes. They need to adjust the tax rate down, but they say, oh, that's all fixed, and it's one entity point. The taxing authority, let me rephrase, Dallas Central Appraisal District creates the values, and then the cities come up with their own tax rates. Well, they're saying, we don't raise taxes, but your values go up. But it's still all crap because bottom line is our expenses go up. And we're talking about, in some of these properties, 50% of your expenses are taxes. It's huge. Is that, Paul, is about that 50% about as big as you've seen? Or higher? Yeah, it's insane. And then higher expenses means lower NOI, which means lower value. So they do that, and really it lowers the value of the property overall. So They've got a calculation how they calculate that without the taxes to come up with a cap rate value and weight it in there. It's all a bunch of crap. But yeah, because you can only be taxed the amount that similar properties next to you are, so yours aren't doing. But they're attacking everybody, trying to get all of them up so that it brings the overall average up. There's a property I was looking at it was a small property, and it was for sale, and I think it was, they wanted $160,000 a door for it, and their tax value was like $80,000 a door. And when I asked them about how they are adjusting for that, brokers now go to tax adjusters and consultants to come up with what will the values be so that they can then pass, because in the operating memorandums, they don't put what the tax increases are in their pro formas because they don't want to give away what they think it's going to sell for and they just do like a 2 or 3% increase. But what they are doing now is they're putting in a report that says, hey, we hired this tax consultant and they say our taxes should be X. And we've always calculated as brokers or as buyers, and we've taken the value times 80% times the tax rate to come up with what we think it is. In the last few years, we've had to go up to 85, 90% of the purchase price because now they're looking at deeds of trust, they're looking at the notes, they're looking at all of the data to come up with the values of what you paid for it. To answer your question, that is not passed through. That does not pass through to tenants. So it'd be something interesting. In commercial, they do that. It'd be interesting to go ahead and put that as part of our RUBS or our bill back as the property taxes. That way they got a stake in the deal, yeah. So we can start, having the complaints because they don't see the taxes, they don't pay it. They don't care what it is, but get them involved in the process and use that as a rub back. I don't know if anybody's doing it. Ken, you know anybody that's doing that? Addendum time, yeah, that we can raise the amounts based on the new tax rates. And here's your taxing authority, call and complain to them. There's 100 units in Mid-Cities area that is being listed and coming out the next few days that I got an early look on that I can't say anything about, but broker relationships tell me some of these things. There's another DFW portfolio that's being listed by a broker, but he can't give me any information yet because he doesn't want to jinx getting the listing. And another North Dallas small deal that we're putting in our offer on, and it's a small deal in Frisco, and but it looks very promising as well. Like I said, so we're always looking. The way that this works is, I'll show you on the next page real quick. Okay. We didn't get a chance to update this slide. There's 42 properties that we've analyzed. If myself or Julian finds a property that's available or that's on the market or that we hear about, I shuffle it over to Julian and he analyzes the property. He does what we're going to do here in a little bit, which takes him, how long does it take you per property?
Well, it depends on how deep we want
How
to go,
deep?
but it could be 2 hours to 5 hours.
2 to 5 hours is what he takes about for. I don't think he takes 2 to 5 hours. 5 hours is a really in-depth analysis.
Well, but
But-
here's the deal. But you don't just sit down and bang it out. Sometimes you have to call the
Oh yeah,
broker.
as far as getting the information together, calling the broker, talking to him, looking at it, because we actually really have to dig deep on. We can do a general analysis. That's the way that I do it. I take a shortcut to give a first glance to see what it looks like. And I use what I think the expenses should be. Julian's a lot more diligent when he looks at it. He actually breaks down every line item of expenses so that he can look at what's going to happen with the taxes, what's out of line. There was one property we were looking at that the payroll was $1,800 per unit, which is way out of the realm of possibility. It's way overstaffed. So we look and see where we can squeeze on those expenses and or have to bump them up in the case of taxes. So he looks at all those, he runs it by me, we analyze it a little bit more, go out and tour the property, see if we want to make an offer. Well, out of 42 properties, we made an offer on 5 maybe, out of 42, because the numbers just don't work on a lot of these properties. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to do this on our own here. Right here. First page. Does everybody have one? We only have like 55 of them. So if you can share, great. If not, do we have any left? Yeah, we've got a few left. Okay. The way we analyze these, and I'm going to skip around a little bit. First thing we need to know is where the property is, what the name of it, and I'm not giving you that information, so don't try and figure it out. Nikolai. Super sleuth. Okay. So this is an off-market deal. I know the owner, and we've talked about it. I actually looked at the numbers last year, and the price was a little bit high. And I'm saying, well, the market's gone up since then, so now it probably makes sense at the price you want. And hopefully he's not saying that he wants even higher price now. So we don't even have a set price exact. So we're coming up with the numbers to see what we can offer to see if that makes sense. Okay. First page, this is just a summary of the rent roll. Okay, can anybody see any information on there in particular? How many units is it? 88 units. Okay, so it's a smaller property. And first off, I want to look at, okay, now there's also a unit mix down on the bottom. Now, when I'm doing the first blush, first analysis, I'm just saying, hey, there's 88 units. The next question I ask, what's the average size? Okay. Do you see an average size on there? Anybody? Okay, so sometimes you have to figure it out. What's the total square footage? 84,520 divided by 88 is how much? How much? 960. Okay, so first thing I know is that the average unit size is 960 square feet. Is that big? Is that small? What is that? That's a big unit for an average. Okay, so now first off, right off the bat, I know 960 square foot average. That means my make-ready expense is going to be a little bit higher. My CapEx is going to be a little bit higher, bigger units to go ahead and take care of. It also means my rent per square foot, when we're analyzing, is going to be a little bit lower. Okay, so the smaller the unit, the higher rent per square foot. Okay. You know what, Julian, take this. If there's anything you want to add into on that, then please speak up. So average unit size, 960. Now what's the occupancy on here? 95.5. So it's doing good there. Now, here's something I want you to, here's a tricky question. What's your effective rent? Okay, because they'll have market rent. They'll say that the market rent is, it's right there on there, 87,880. Well, what is that per unit? 87,880 divided by 88. What's your average rent? Almost $1,000. So a little over $1 a foot in rent right now. But that's how much the market rent is. How much are they actually collecting? Okay. So the actual collections, is that on here somewhere?
Yeah, rent revenue, 17.
So they're collecting $80,233, but you've got to divide that by the number of occupied units. How many units are actually occupied? 84. 84 units are occupied. You see that down there by property occupancy right in the middle? Okay, so take your 80,000 divided by 84. What do you come up with there? I'm sure Greg has it. 955? Okay, so now you can see your effective rents. Because here's the whole thing. I can turn around tomorrow and raise rents $100 across the board and say my market rent is $120,000. Is that applicable? Is it realistic? Who knows? But what are they getting now? Now there's also another neat trick that Julian does, is when he dives deep into it, he looks at the rent roll and he looks at the last few leases they've signed. It says, where are those last few leases at? Because are they actually bumping that rent up? Is that higher than what their average effective is? Follow? Hey, Garrett, See if Kai's out there. Okay, so we know that we know what the effective rent is. Now we need to know I've got my spreadsheet usually pulled up. Okay, so we've got our effective rent. Thank you, sir. I want to know what's the potential rent? Okay, what can we actually get? Now we're going to go in there and we're going to fix the property up. Here, our whole MO is invest the capital in there. We're going to hold it long term, so we're going to fix everything. Fix it all, fix up, give it a new energy, a new life, a new personality, and raise the rents. So what can rents be? Okay, now we're going to flip over a few more pages. And it's set to this one right here. Okay? It's got a picture on it in the top left. It says subject property in the top left. By the way, Paul, you know the owner of this, and I did get approval before sharing this information. Just to go and get that caveat out there. Okay, so this is the subject property. Now, some of that information is on here. Now, there are so many data sources to get information from. This is CoStar. And they call every month. They find out what the rents are. They look at that and get all the data in there for you. Okay? It has the unit mix, availability, average rent, and they also have effective rent. Now, I also look at this and say, how close is their effective rent to the actual rent roll? Because here's another sneaky thing. Is at least, I don't know how Ken does it, but when they call and ask for data on the properties that I own, I always told the staff, tell them we're 98% occupied and give them whatever the market rent is for everything we get. Can you email that over to them? Do you have internet?
Yeah.
I need this up there. If you have a quick analysis form of any property. Okay, so that's the subject property. Now, you can look at the picture. Do you see it? Can you tell anything by the picture? Mansards, which means what? Flat roof, which means an age of 60s, early 70s. Okay, C class. It could mean that it could be an all bills paid property. Could be individually metered. We don't know yet. Could go either way. And that's just by looking at the picture. Now, you can get a whole lot more data on this. Now, we take this. It has the unit mix on here. So now we have the actual, well, we had it on the first page also. But to break it down, we did an overall average. You really want to look at each individual floor plan and say, what can you get for each floor plan? For example, on this property, we've got 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 810 square, actually, I'm looking at this. Okay, somebody compare that to the first page on the rent rolls. Make sure that that's correct. Their smallest unit looks like it's 810 square feet, a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. So we have no 1 bedroom units. So what does that also tell you? What do you get with more bedrooms? Families, more kids, more a higher occupancy, which could also, you can think about more water usage. More toilets flushing, more showers being taken. More dogs, more cats. Okay? And all these things are just, it's just a little check mark. File that away for this property, okay? All 2 bedrooms, more kids, more water, higher water expense. So if I see something that's out of whack, like water expense, I can say, wait a minute, that's too low considering what the property is. Per unit is $1,085, so $1.15 a foot. Okay. Now, what did we say about the rent per square foot for the subject property? Right now, it's about $1. Also, the average unit size is a little bit bigger, which means that in comparison to that $1.15, what's our rent's going to be? A little bit less. Now, that's the average, right? That means there's going to be properties that are higher, properties that are lower. Okay. So if we're going to put a bunch of money in CapEx, where do we anticipate our rents being? toward the upper end. Okay, we try not to go above the best property in that market, but we got to look and see where we're at. Because right now, there used to be a time where you could buy properties on actuals. You could look at it and say, hey, it's making this amount of money, so we can pay this amount for it. Right now, it's so competitive with everybody putting offers in on properties that they're squeezing every little bit they can, and then they have 1031 money, they've got stupid money, whatever it is, and they're out buying these things at a lower and lower cap rate and on more and more pro forma. Well, we can't buy just on what's sitting there right now. I would love to. That would be great. But we have to look and see what we can do with it, which is why value properties work better for us. Year built. Was that information on there? Did anybody see that? 1972? 70. Okay. Now, when we're looking at this, we say, okay, it's a chiller property. We plug in, we're just going to do a wild ass guess on CapEx just to see where we're at. Okay. Julian, what wild number would you pick just to put something in there? Okay. So $7,500 to $8,000 a door, and that's not knowing anything. We know if the property is in great shape, we're probably at least going to spend $8,000 a door. Because no matter how good it looks, there's something that needs to be fixed or upgraded so that we can increase the value. Right now they say no deferred maintenance, and there's a proven ability to raise rents if you upgrade the units. Put in granite, replace cabinets, put in black appliances or stainless steel appliances, put in the faux wood floor. Same thing every one of us is doing. And they just prove that there could be higher rents, that Julian in his diligence will look at there and say, hey, are they actually getting that on their new units? To give you an idea, the property in Lake Tahoe that we looked at, that's exactly what they did. They raised their rents, and they were leasing a few units at a very high rent. And then they projected that all of the units would be rented at that very high rent. Well, in the marketing time during that, their occupancy was going down and down and down because they could get a few people to pay that rent, but not many. So that had to raise a red flag. If they would have sold it, real fast, they might have tricked some people. But because they didn't, that occupancy went down. We could see that they weren't renting it for that. Number of units. How many units? 88. Average unit size? 959. See somebody exact. Jeremy, you're 960. Current effective rents. What did we say that was? The market is saying $1,085. $1.15. Now, we could just plug that number in there just for grins, just as a first blush. Kind of like a sculptor. They get the rough outline down, and then they start doing the details and going back and adding the details. And if that rough outline isn't there, then they kind of scrap it. Let's just do that. Let's just say that pro forma rent is $1,085. That's, again, a real rough estimate, just to see what the numbers look like. Now we compare that with the T3 income. All I did is, just for ease so that we could fit everything on there, I have the trailing 6 on here, but this is as of January. So February, March, April, or not on, no, don't worry about it. We have new numbers that are higher, but I just want to go off of this. Okay, so our T6, actually do T3. For those of you who have calculators, does anybody have calculators? Liars, everybody has iPhones. Okay, so look at what I want to know the rental income. So we've got rent, loss gain to lease, month-to-month rent, prior month collections, delinquent rent, vacancy loss, discounts, concessions, employee discounts, bad debt, and one-time specials. So our total revenue. So take the last 3 months, 232,751. Now you can divide by 3 times 12 or just times 4. So what is our actual rental income that they've collected? What is that? 949,024. Okay, now, here's some of those tricky things. Right up here, any accountants in here? None? Oh my God. Even Dillard's already said no. Okay. Cash accounting. I like that a lot better. Because accrual means that they said, oh, we should collect this, but it doesn't say how much they actually collected. Okay, so if it's accrual, it's going to be a higher number. So you got to look at that. So I like that we've got cash books on this. So the other income, other tenant income, the last, what is that? T3 annualized on other income. 8597 plus 7605 plus 7613. 7938 average. So, how much? Anybody else? Anybody? How much? 95,260? 95,260, okay. Now, the other thing I look out on that to see if there's any anomalies. Is there any huge spikes in there? Because sometimes you'll have an insurance payment or something like that, which should be below the line, which is in other underneath net operating income, to see if that got spiked for any reason. Because that could throw it off. Kind of like Dillard was talking about the tax refund or insurance proceeds. Because in insurance proceeds, they could pay you for lost rents, and that is rental income. But if it's all booked in 1 month, then that'll skew the whole things when you're annualizing that. So you got to look at all those things. Now, T12 expenses. Okay. Now, this gets a little fuzzy, but you can go down. Next page has utilities, contract services, repairs and maintenance, turnover, payroll, taxes and insurance. Now, something you want to look at is especially on insurance. For some reason, I've seen a lot of brokers or even owners, they miss this because they say, well, I'm not accruing for it because this is cash, so I'm not going to pay it till the end of the year, so I'm not even going to put it in the financials now. So you have to make sure that everything's included in there. So they've got that accrued, plus management fees, administrative expense, marketing, total operating expense. Now, I go ahead and use the 12-month expenses because that can really fluctuate quite a bit. And so the total expenses for the last 12 months on this, 526,964? 526,964.66, right? 694, okay. I heard somebody saying something else. Okay, so that's almost $6,000 a door in expenses. Okay, so, what's that?
Well, I would just say, talk about, you really need to scrub your expenses.
You do. You need to really go through those expenses, scrub. I'm doing the high level, just basic thing right now.
Quickly tell them how, personal expenses get thrown in there, travel.
Yeah, there's a property we looked at that is owned by a guy who's owned it for 25 years. His financials, his repairs and maintenance and everything was just under a category that said credit card. And so I had no idea what was in there. No idea. If you own it yourself, you're also going to throw every expense you possibly can in there. You're going to put your home landscaping in there. You're going to do all sorts of tricky illegal things to try and lower your taxable income on that property and to write off all those personal expenses. Well, this is professionally managed and partnership owned, so that's not going to happen. But this is almost $6,000 a door. Now, $6,000 a door in expenses tells me all bills paid. Okay? Because basically, if it's an all bills paid property, expenses are about $6,000 a unit. If it's individually metered, individual hot water heaters, it could be as low as $4,000.
No, wait a minute. Master meter, not necessarily all bills paid.
Okay, master metered. I got corrected here. Okay, means that there's one master meter And it could be sub-metered and billed back by a separate company. It also means that it could be that it's master metered, but still individual HVAC units. So you need to look a little bit deeper on all that, scrub the numbers. But also the other income at $96,000, is that high on this property? 100 units? Not really. It doesn't seem like they're billing a lot back. So there could be some room for billing, for creating higher other income. So we look at those things. But for right now, we need a budgeted expense for us. All bills paid property. I'm just going to go ahead and plug in there, and I'm just going to say $6,000 a unit right now. Now again, this is the rough outline. Down at the bottom of this sheet, I've got more detail, and we'll go through that. So this gives me some rough numbers, and it'll actually give me right over here. Those are the main assumptions that I use. These were already auto-filled, okay? Closing costs, I budget 5%. Loan amount, I budget 75%. That's the price plus the CapEx times 75%. That's because we try and roll in capital expenditures. Now, because prices have gotten so high that it's no longer 75%, it's closer to 72% depending on the transaction. Could be a little bit lower because they'll only loan you enough money to cover a debt coverage ratio. So they take your net operating income, they look at the, and divide that by 1.25 to come up with the amount you can pay for debt service, and then back into that with what your payment would be to come up with what your loan, your max loan proceeds are. Okay, you kind of follow that? So lenders look at that and say, this is the most we'll loan you on this based on this cash flow. Okay. Now, because that's already set in there, I've also got operating account reserves. $200,000 for a 100-unit property is a bit high, so I'm going to lower that. I'm going to say that now it's not 75%, it's 72%. Interest rate, 5%, Paul. Is 5% low? Low? So probably 5.2, even with green? Okay, so if we can do if we're just going out to Fannie Mae, about 5.2%. Now, if we can lower the utility costs, we can apply for green financing, which is just a little special thing Fannie Mae does, and they give you a lower interest rate, which might bring it down to 4.9 right now, for example. So because this is an older property, I'm going to assume it's not as efficient as it could be. So I'm going to say that we could probably get 4.9, but I'm going to put 4.95, just to give me a little bit extra cushion. 30-year amortization. Now, IO, can I get 5 years IO on that? No. No. It's a 1972 property, 1970 property. So Fannie Mae is not going to be that generous and only give me 5 years IO like we got on Brookside and some of the other properties. What could we get? Well, if I'm putting all that money into it, we got to be able to collect more than that. Okay, so that's off. So now I'm going to go back up here and say, look, our rents, we said the current rent's $955 and performance $1085, which is a bump of 14%. I'm going to say, you know what? We might be able to do, that was average. We might be able to do a little bit better than that. So let's just, for grins, do 1100. Okay, now, if somebody wants to feel real aggressive, one of the deeper steps is we go in here under unit mix and we actually put each unit type. Analyze the square footage and compare it to all the other properties in the market. You want to be even more aggressive on that, you go out and shop each one of those properties, find out what they're really charging, what they're doing, and see how your units compare to their units. Because if you go into them, how many people can tell me how many square feet this room is? Not a single one of you can, okay? But you, just like your house, if you go into a house, you don't know how many square feet it is, but you know it's 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom or what it is and how it's laid out, whether you like it. So you need to really look at those to compare yours to somebody else's to say, hey, is mine superior? Mine might be only 1,000, my 3-bedroom might be 1,000 square feet and the neighbor's be 1,300 square feet, but it's laid out so horribly and inefficient that my rents can be higher than theirs, even though it's a smaller unit. Okay, so again, that's deeper and deeper to really maximize your rents. But right now, let's just say, because we saw that the average was 1085, let's just bump that up to 1100, which I'm looking at right here and saying that's $1.15 a foot. Okay, on ours, and a 15% increase in rents. Okay. Now I go back down here and I'm saying we can collect more than $26,000 the first year. On a 100-unit property, we can do better than that. So I go back up here and I'm going to adjust this to 12% and see, okay, that's collecting $73,000 more in rent. Is it possible if we've got market rents that we're bumping up from $1.8 million to $1,161, that we can, and putting all this money into it, that we can collect more rent? Think it's possible? Highly probable. That's what we plan on doing. We're fixing it up. We're turning those units over. Ken works his magic and waves his magic wand, and people come in and rent for the higher amounts after he fixes it up. Other income is just the same exact number as what they're collecting. Technically, we could probably still be able to collect more than that, especially if we rub back property taxes. Love that idea. Okay. Now I also look at the expenses that they have versus what we have. I'm only raising the expenses by $2,000. That's not enough. We have to really dig deep on the expenses to figure out where property taxes are. So we have to go look and see what the current property tax value is, which on this property might be $4 million. And now, in our assumption, we're paying $10 million for it. So our tax is going up. Okay, and at 2.6% of $10 million, $260,000. And they're probably paying, well, 260 times 80%. Let's just say $200,000. Whereas they're probably paying in taxes right now 100. Just round numbers. So we're looking at that. So what can we do to lower expenses? If we're going with the green program, we can lower utilities. That's why we're spending money on that. We can also collect more in other income because we're going to be more aggressive. Okay, so let's go back up here and see where our numbers are. So, still not good. Just for grins, let's say now our offer price, now that was at $113,000 a unit. The next thing I'm going to say is, what's a realistic price for Plano, Texas, east side of 75? Plano, 1970s product. Is anybody looking at anything? Just looking at that picture. What do you think it's worth? 80? 60? That's why you're not buying anything. Yeah. Okay, $80,000 a unit. Any other guesses? Okay. Give you an idea. There was a property that I was looking at. It was a small property. It was 20 units or so. I told you about this last time. Down 15th Street from downtown Plano going east, about 3 blocks. And I was calling on that and I thought, you know what? I think this is a great location. The max it could be is $100,000 a door. Max. I mean, that's stretching. We're going to overpay and give $100,000 a door for it. Their price that they wanted was $130,000 a door. And it was an all bills paid, flat roof, 2-pipe chiller system, $130,000 a door because it was 2 blocks away from downtown Plano. Okay, they were nuts, and don't know if they're going to sell it or not, but that's a high demand thing. Let's just take this down to, let's say this is 8.5 million. See what happens in the numbers. Okay, now We changed the price from 8.5, and now we've got a 16.64% IRR and a 14% per year average ROI. Now, does that look more feasible? Okay, so now I'm trying to find out, can we pay 8.5? Will that work? Okay. Now, these were the steps that we went through first. Well, we went out there and started doing due diligence, because he said, come out there, tell me what you really pay for it. What you really need to do is go through all these rent comps and look at each individual unit. What did we end up with on our average? Do you know on this?
Comes.
No, our performer rent. Because there's even rent comps comparables by bedrooms. The one that I look at most on this.
I was at 285.
Okay. There's one that's got a bar graph on it that shows the high and the low for each property. I don't see it in here right now. Oh, right here. The rent comps looks like this. And it shows the high and low and average for each property. And I glance at that and say, what is the most people are paying for each floor plan? One more page. One more. I think it's one more. Nope. Second to last, actually. Second to last page. And it shows each property. They actually have a star rating, so you can compare the quality of the property on their star rating to, what's the star rating? That's just their age, condition, how they come up with it. I do not know.
What was
The star rating right here.
what's the average? Like,
The average 3. 3 on everything.
nice as A class to get the 5 stars.
Yeah, A class is 5 stars. It's new. It's
Really nice.
okay. But you can look and see what rents are, high, low, and average for each floor plan. And you can look at that and say, okay, what is this floor plan going for? What is this? And again, there's a part art, part science to figuring all that out. Now, we went out there and got bids for doing all the work that we want to do, which is closer to it. $14,000 a door is, as Ken says, my new number. Because these crazy ass contractors give me numbers like $18,000 a door and things like that. And you know what? Yeah, if they're going to make more money than the investors, then that's great. Let's do it for 18. I'm bitching about them. I'm picking on them. But we can adjust and actually really bid and get down. And so I'm assuming $14,000 a door. And then Ken has to figure out how to make it work. That's the beauty of it. $14,000 an hour. Now, our ROI has changed. Now it's only 10.07. But it's in Plano. How's Plano as far as a growth market? Okay. Now we do have 4% rental increases going in here. Year 2 on expenses, 4% increase rather than 2. And that's just a bump up for extra taxes. But that needs to be refined as well. But so 8.5 is a little heavy for this. Let's take this down to 8,250,000. 12% per year average for partners. Now, that's there. I also look at, right here, key statistics. We would be all in on this property at $113,000 a door. Okay, for anybody that's been investing for more than a year, that's just nuts that this is getting there. Okay, $113 a door for a 1970s product. But that's what we're showing. That's all in after rent increases, things like that. That's looking like a realistic value. 5-year IRR, 15%. Anybody use IRR? Anybody? Okay, one. Greg, of course. 3-year cash out. So I also look at this and say, okay, is this a probable property to refinance in 3 years or do a supplemental and pull cash out? Well, at 21%, Not really. It's not worth spending the money to go ahead and refinance and pull that out. So that's where I would go. If it was, then I would change this to give you an idea of what happens. If I said, yes, we're going to refinance this, well, now the per year average went down to 9.59. Okay. Yeah, well, my guess is that we can actually rub back a lot more than they're doing, even with the rent increases. Because I'm assuming the other properties are rubbing back a lot more. But let's just say, here, this is the beauty of it. We can go ahead and play with it and say, what realistically can we do? Let's take other income from 95,000. Let's say we can collect 120. Well, so he's saying, so we can rub that back, which will, if the residents are paying for it, all of a sudden now they're going to report leaks. They're not going to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm paying for this, I'm going to use less. Well, if we're doing the green program, we're also lowering that water usage, so the amount we're rubbing back could be less. But what we would do is rub back, now we're going to rub back trash, and we're going to rub back water, and we're going to rub back all, maybe on electric. I don't know if there's sub-meters there or how they're doing it. But bottom line is we say that we can go ahead and collect more in other income. Okay? And again, you got to remember, we're just slowly taking this and carving this out of the clay and taking a little piece out of here, adding a little more to try and come up and see what kind of ranges are we getting in here. So on this, we're at a 5-year average ROI if all of these things can be met. We're saying that we're collecting really $97,000 more in year one than they collected, which is not unreasonable. Maybe a little aggressive on a 100-unit property or 88-unit property. Yes, sir. We don't even include that. How does depreciation? Don't even put it into the calculation, because what it does is all it is a non-cash deduction that's going to lower your taxable income. So that 15%, if you're counting your cash flow, actually right here, look right here, partner yield year one, 5.94%. It's 6%. Well, the depreciation is going to offset that amount. So that's kind of an after-tax return. So if you want to compare it to stocks or some other investments, you got to take that into consideration. So that's really about 30% more than the 6%. So you're getting really closer to 8% if you're going to compare it to a taxable. Yes, all investor, there's interest expense that's written off. There's depreciation that's written off. The way that we set up these partnerships, they're an LLC, and whoever buys into that owns that percentage. So everything is their ownership percentage. So if we do this, for example, if we had one partner on this that's putting up our capital required on this, $3,167,000. If one partner is putting up $3,167,000, they get 85% of everything. Income, expense, depreciation, nothing is separated out or special or anything else. As a matter of fact, the only thing that's different is that on a capital event, investors get paid back first before the sponsor does. And the sponsor includes myself, Jeremy, Brian, and what's that? And KPs, any key principals on the loan. Normal depreciation schedule on multifamily, 27 and a half years? 40 years. 40 years. It's 27 and a half on. What is it on commercial?
I think it's 39.
39. What is it on multifamily?
Same thing. It's commercial. It's commercial.
It's 29 and a half.
It's commercial real estate. It's been accelerated.
Either way, I'm not a CPA, whatever it is, it is. But
you
we
play
do
well on TV.
accelerate it on some properties that we're going to hold long term. We do cost segregation. For example, Brookside Partners. Did you see a big ass loss on that, even though we only owned it a couple months? Okay, that was real nice because we did cost segregation, which is an accelerated depreciation on the property. And it cost us a little bit more money, but it gave a great amount of depreciation for it. So this looks better. Now let me show you. When we start digging down, look at all this. Look at all these numbers it calculated. All this crap. We do a 10-year pro forma here. IRRs, internal rate of return, loan information, what that's doing, partner yields. This is the important part, okay, for you guys. Year one, looking at a close to a 6% return. That's not all that impressive. 6.57, 8, 9.88, but then over 5 years, 144% back at the time of sale. And that's after sales costs, any sponsor splits. I do that just to say, what does the investor get? Okay. Then we go down there and said, okay, what does somebody who just puts $100,000 in? First off, their ownership is 2.68%, and they would get $6,000, $6,500, $8,100, $98. And again, to go back to his question right there, most of that is covered by depreciation, so it's pretty much tax-free. Okay. Then when we sell it, $144,000. So somebody puts in $100,000 over 5 years gets $175,000 back. And we basically say that's 75% return or 15%. Cash out refi calculations. Flip, if we wanted to turn around and flip it, what kind of return would there be? Debt yield. I threw this in because we've got some lenders that go by a debt yield and say, okay, based on their loan, what would the debt yield be so that we can calculate, and that's by month. We do the first 12 months. We buy a property and they say it's collecting this. In the first few months, it goes down. People move out, the people that were there not paying rent and somehow we're still living there, get out. New sheriff in town, we get rid of Purple Martians. We want vacancy because we need turnover. We don't want everybody to move out. But we need a certain amount of vacancy so we can go in there and start fixing those units up and getting the higher rent. So it'll go down, which we budget for, that the income goes down and then goes back up. And that's per month, so lenders can see that. Our cash position to make sure that we keep enough money in reserves. And this is where it really gets down to the nitty-gritty right here. Okay? We look at the current expenses and we plug those in for each category so that we can see how they match up. For example, payroll, $1,408 per unit. You see that? $123,940. That's $1,408 per unit. Any idea if that's high or low or high? What should it be roughly?
1,150 to 1,200.
Yeah, 1,150, 1,250 maybe. So it's a little bit high. So what we did is we go in there and said, okay, we think that it should be $103,000, $1,170. So we're doing our budget and adjusting each line item of what it is. What did we do on water? Utilities, $118,000. We didn't even lower it, even though it's $1,370 per unit. So there's some savings we can put on utilities if we're doing the green program. We should anticipate lowering those expenses. Contract services, marketing, insurance. Now, their insurance, $652 a unit. Okay, anybody, any guesses on what insurance should be?
300?
225, 275, 300, 350 on a high side. Insurance claims. You have insurance claims, your rating goes up and your insurance goes up.
Does that stay with the property? I mean, the property may change hands.
It doesn't matter, they still,
The insurance history is still with that property.
yes. So, but it'll fall off. Do you have any idea, Paul, what insurance claims they had on this property? 2 fires. Big fires? 8 units each fire? Okay, so good news, bad news scenario. That means that there's been 16 units that were on fire that are mostly new. There's a bonus, which also means they probably have double pane glass, sprinklers. Oh, even sprinkled. Okay, so to be brought up to code if more than a certain amount of the building is destroyed. We say that the purchase price we have on there is 8250000 times 0.026. I'm assuming that's the tax rate, times 0.85. So property taxes, 182. That's what that says. Say 182,000. We said that utilities are high. That should be more like 100,000. Payroll's already been adjusted. So now we're looking at expenses still of 59. Sir. In this is just operating expenses. We go up to the 5-year pro forma here. And after our rental income, other income, gross income, minus expenses, net operating income, now we have reserves that are taken out, owner expenses, and our debt service there. That's principal and interest. Except for the first 3 years, we're showing interest only. Actually, it's showing 5 years on here. Hold on a second. Okay, so Paul is pointing out that my vacancy collection loss of 12% is high. However, I'm going to say that I have it a little bit high on purpose because we're raising the rents by 15% immediately. So if we go in there, we already have tenants paying a certain amount of rent. Okay, and if we raise rents tomorrow, it doesn't really matter. The amount of collections doesn't get affected. So I have to have I budget in higher vacancy and collection loss year 1, and then I scale that down because if you look at years 3 and 4, well, 10% down to 8% years 4 and 5, which in that market 8%, is that high? Okay, but 93, so, well, still 6% still is, puts it at a 94% economic. So let's just bump that down to 7 just to, I have a Mac and this is a PC, and so I'm a little fumbling around. Here's a big thing. Okay, so we're at 16.3%. Now, something that we haven't addressed is the exit cap rate. You've all heard me bitch about that, right? Okay.
No, do it again.
No, do it again. Do it again.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. So I'm saying that in year 2, if we're saying that the exit cap rate is 6% in year 2. Right now, cap rates between 5.5 and 6. Okay. Well, every year we have to budget that we don't know what it's going to look like in the future. But we need to budget that that's going up a little bit every year just to, because interest rates go up. Now, most money managers and people have been saying, and I've even heard Mike Becker say 10 basis points a year. Okay? So 6%, 6.10, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4. So that's what I did here. So the exit cap rate's 6.5%. Here's where, for those of you who are on Brookside, let me see Brookside again. I used a 7% exit cap rate. And that made our returns pretty low, lower than they should be. If I would have put that 6.5 cap rate in there, our yields are expected on that to be 22% per year on average over 5 years. Okay? Because this 6.5 cap, well, what if it ends up being 7? Okay. As soon as I hit enter, that per year average is going to change. It's going to go down dramatically. I would guess 12. Okay. 11.5% per year. Keep it at the cap rate that it's at right now for analysis purposes. If that's the case, wrong one. Where's the undo button on this? Okay, if that's the case, 6% cap rate, 21.5. Here's the whole thing. Moving that one little needle just a little bit, 0.5% is throwing off the overall yields huge. So I definitely look at the exit cap rate on any deals you're doing, because 6% is just not realistic. It could be 6%. We don't know, but we got a budget that that's going up also. So 6.5, which is a realistic number. I don't think it's aggressive. I don't think it's conservative. I think it's a realistic number that we need to use to, if I put it at 7% on everything, we wouldn't buy anything right now. Okay, it just wouldn't work. So if we can be, like I said, I like to look at being conservative in a few different areas. One is $14,000 a door CapEx. We're spending 14 grand a door and we're only raising the rents. Well, we're raising the rents by $145 per unit. That's realistic, right? We're fixing it up. We're going to have a great property. It's on a nice street. Changing the demographic a little bit. Raising rents 15%. Expenses at $6,000 a door. What if you say, Darwin, you're too low on that, and we have to bump that up, even though down here we bumped up taxes and we were at 59.65. I can't read it without my glasses. Okay, so I'm still, even with taxes, bumped up to 182,000, which if we were to close on it right now, we still have 6 months at a lower tax rate and then 6 months to get our T12 at a higher tax rate. So that would be blended and be lower. So it'd work out better. Okay. So this being said, just knowing what you know now. Now the other thing that I do one more thing, is a capital raise of $3,167,460 is a little funky. So I'm going to go ahead and say 32,540 to give a nice round number. So we've got I call Jeremy and I say, Jeremy, we've got this property. It's an off-market deal. I think it's a good deal. We're at $8,250,000 on this assumption. And I need to raise $3.2 million, and my per year average is almost 16%. Can you do that? Well, right now it's an absolute yes. The problem is most of the properties we're looking at right now, it's 10, 12%. Okay? So, we need to raise $3.2 million for this. Does anybody want to buy into it? Okay, 15 people right here. We're at 100 grand a piece. We're halfway there.
Boom.
Just right here. And guess what? You haven't seen the property. Because all you're investing in is a stream of cash flows. Just that. That's all you're investing in. And of course, now it comes into, we have to make an offer, have to get that offer accepted. Need to back up all of that information, which is when I call Ken out to do due diligence. He goes out and walks all the units. He brings a manager or somebody out to go ahead and do a lease to ledger audit to verify all the numbers that are, all the rents are being correct on what they're reporting. Walk every unit. We have a contractor walk the units to give a budget. Have a contractor walk all the exterior to give a bid on everything on the outside. Okay, and then he does a budget, an operating budget, more detailed than what we did here. He looks at the rents and walks all the units and looks at that to say, I can get this amount of rents. Generally, I provide him with a version of this, and he either says, you're on crack or I can do it. One or the other. Usually on rents, I'm not too far off. But on CapEx, because I've been trying to say $14,000 a door, and he goes out there and says, oh no, it'll be this. Prices have gone up. If you want me to get that rent, I need to fix all this stuff. If you want me to have lower expenses, you need to fix all this stuff. So I need more money. Okay, so that's the process, and then we go through and do that, do the due diligence. We hand it over to Paul. Paul goes out and gets the financing. We get all the hard bids. We put together a private placement memorandum, which Brian Johnson in my office does. He puts that together, gives it over to Jeremy. Jeremy reaches out to you guys, who wants to be in on that? here's the deal. And then, of course, you'll have a lot more, you have pictures, you have more information. We can do tours of the property sometimes, and go through, rare, but we might be able to do it on this one. And go through, and he raises the money. We get them enough money in the bank. We get the loan approved, put it all together, close the property, and then hand it off back to Ken to go ahead and make it do what he said it would do in the due diligence. Then we hire a great manager. We got a few of them back there. And really, then all this really comes down to, it's not even Ken, it's them. They're the ones out there that are saying, I got to do this. And then we're changing this. We talked to you a couple days ago. We want to change the way that they're bonused, and they get bonused based on the amount of cash that gets mailed back to you. So we're all aligned for the same goal. Simple. Kind of. Okay. So any questions on any of that? There's got to be
I
questions.
gain every time I watch you do this, with all these little changes through the spreadsheet. It helps my intuitive understanding. a lot.
And you go to every training everywhere.
Aggies need all the help we can get.
You know why Aggies don't drink Kool-Aid?
Why is that?
They can't get the 2 quarts of water in the little package. Sorry.
This one somewhere it says it was renovated in 1999.
Yeah, renovated. It says in there renovated in 1999. That doesn't even matter. That's too long ago. Even if it was renovated 4 years ago, not enough. Not enough. And we actually had this. We negotiated this deal last year. We did the due diligence, and the price was off. It wasn't right where it needed to be. And he hasn't out on the market. So I went back to him saying, okay, well, I think prices have gone up to where this now makes sense. So now we're talking to him about doing that. And I went ahead and told him that I was going to show you guys these numbers and do all this. So this is a secret. So don't tell anybody. So luckily our internet didn't work.
Yeah, it was actually good.
I'm kidding. I wish it would have. I encourage you to share this information. It's free information for everybody so that they can learn also. Like our Facebook page and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Darwin German Real Estate Investments, so that you can get all of the content. We go through everything, give it all away to you, educate you so that you can be informed and educated investors, and happy investing.